Well, good morning and welcome to Valley Baptist Middle School Life Group Devotion this morning. I hope you guys enjoyed the service with Pastor Roger and everything like that. Now, I just want to spend some time to reflect on what he said this morning, give you some things that kind of stuck out in my mind, and give you guys some questions to maybe think about or, as I'd recommend, talk about as a family, because I think that they can be super helpful and get the communication going about what we learned today in Pastor Rodgers' message. The message he gave us this morning was an amazing sermon, and the big idea was to live by faith. Because as people of faith, we're not exempt from the pain, suffering, or pandemic or the storms that come in life. We are just as vulnerable to those as everybody else. But one thing that he said that really stood out to me was this: the faith starts before we begin the storm. We prepare for a storm on a sunny day, and that just stuck out to me because how many times do we think about the storms that we go through or the storms that are coming up? Most of the time we live minute by minute, moment by moment, and we're not preparing. We're not living by faith when everything's going great, when we should be. When things are going good, sometimes we have a time to kind of slough off and, oh, it's okay, God, it's okay. I'll be good. I've got this. Things are going great. But it's during those times that we need to really focus our faith on God and rely on Him to show us who He is and what He's done for us, to trust in His Word, spend time in prayer, spend time reading His Word and understanding the things that we need to do to strengthen our faith. So here's the thing. Most of us probably haven't done that yet. And or maybe you have. And if you have, that's awesome and amazing, and I think it's great. But if you haven't, what I want you guys to talk about or think about, maybe even write down, maybe put some things in the comments, that would be awesome, is what are you doing or what can you do in order to strengthen your faith, to prepare for the storm? We're in the midst of a storm right now, a pandemic right now. What can you do to strengthen your faith at this point? And then how will you continue to do so once we've cleared this storm, this pandemic, and move forward? The other thing that he looked at and that stuck out to me was he talked about Habakkuk and several other prophets who complained about their prayers not being answered. And the thing that stood out to me is who were they complaining to? They were complaining to God. They had asked God for something and God didn't answer, and they complained to Him. They said, hey, why aren't you answering our prayer? We saw that with Habakkuk today. Why aren't you? I'm praying for the salvation of the people of Israel, of Judah. They are sinning so much and they need to be called to the table. And God goes, I am answering your prayer. Can you not see what's happening with the Chaldeans and the Babylonians? And see how they're preparing to come. And so he was saying, hey, I am answering your prayers. Just sometimes we don't know where to look, how to look, or sometimes our prayers are left unanswered. Have you ever felt that God left your prayers unanswered? Or that God didn't give you an answer to why you were suffering or why you were going through something? And I think that that's a difficult thing for a lot of us to try to understand. You're going through pain, a pandemic, a storm in your life. We want answers. We want reasons. But yet sometimes we don't get an answer. Sometimes we don't understand the answer because, like Pastor Roger said this morning, sometimes if God tried to explain to us everything that was going on, we'd be like, wait, what? I don't get it. I don't understand. So sometimes we're not going to get answers. And I don't know why. I don't know why that is that God doesn't do that. I don't know why we suffer. I don't know why any of this happens to us because I'm not God and I can't explain it to Him. But He's the creator of the universe. He is the great God, and He has put everything together for us so that we can grow stronger and know more about His faith. And then Pastor Roger said something, and it stuck out. I wrote it down. I put it in my Bible because I thought that it was huge. And he said this: we need to stop looking for reasons and start looking for results. And when he said that, it was like a lightning bolt went off in my mind. I know that can be painful sometimes, but I'm okay, I promise. And the reason it went off is because before I became a pastor, I had a really dark storm that I went through. And a lot of it had to do with my own doing and the things that I had done. And so what I thought I could do for this morning was to be real and to share that story with you guys, what I went through and the results that came out of it, and why I'm doing this today is because of this storm. So this story goes back probably, oh goodness, 15 years now. Actually, probably more than that, probably 2000, 2001. I had decided that I knew better than God, right? You know, I'm a smart guy. I knew better than God. I had just started college, and I wanted to be a firefighter. And so I began preparing to be a firefighter. And as I went through that process, I had a scholarship to college, so I went and began studying business because I thought, hey, if I'm going to be a firefighter, I need to be, in physical shape. Well, if anything ever happens to me, if I have a business degree, I could work on the back end. And so I began working through all of that process, and I went through school. I got out, I began training, I began moving and trying to work on moving towards that goal of being a firefighter. And everything seemed to be going well. I hadn't been hired yet, but I got a few jobs and God opened some doors and I was working and doing some amazing things. And then 2008 hit and the recession hit. I lost that job. I didn't know what I was going to do because fire departments weren't hiring. Nothing was going on. So I began praying. And even though I was seeking God's face, I wasn't seeking his face for what he wanted. I was seeking it for what I wanted. And all of a sudden, it just seemed like doors started to open. I got into an EMT program. I got my EMT. I got into a Firefighter 1 Academy, and I got my Firefighter 1. So I began working through those things. And it took a while to do all that. I became a EMT. I was driving an ambulance and helping a paramedic and treating people who were sick. And it was great. I loved it. And I go, man, this is what I'm called to do. I'm going to be an EMT, a paramedic, or a firefighter for the rest of my life. And it's going to be amazing. So I continued through that process. And it felt like God was opening door after door after door. I began taking tests and was getting further and further than I had ever been. And so for about a 10-year period, I'd been taking tests, been working, been doing all of these different things towards this goal, and doors were opening. I was finally getting into the chief's interview, which is like the final step. I would get into the chief's interview, but the problem is they rank you. And the one department would be taking 3 guys, and I would be number 4 on the list. One department would be taking 20, and I would be number 23. One department would be taking 8, and I would be number 10. And I was just missing it. But I was so close. I was encouraged. And finally, the perfect scenario came up. And I had my dream department, the place I wanted to be. I was moving up. I was ranked 16. They were taking 40. So I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. And I'm going through all of the process that goes on in being hired as a firefighter. And all of a sudden, God goes, yeah, you spent 10 years. You've been working hard on this. You've been dialing in. You're right at the precipice. You're about to receive what you want. And he goes, no. And he shut the door right in my face. I mean, I was through the door, had one hand in, bam, hit my hand, hurt, kicked me back. And I was like, what? What are you doing? This has been my dream. It was perfect. I mean, I had the perfect plan. I was going to work as a firefighter, and then I was going to work to shift swap so that I could go on short-term mission trips and so that I could go and do things for God. And this is what I wanted to be. It was everything I ever needed. But yet, it wasn't what God wanted. And that next year was probably the most difficult time in my life. I struggled with depression. I struggled with anger. Well, I'd struggled with anger for a long time, but now it was like any little thing set me off and I would just explode into this massive tinderbox. And I was mad at everyone and everybody, and especially I was mad at God. Why would you shut this door on me, God? And we had some conversations. We had some talks. Things that you probably should never say to the creator of the universe were uttered from my lips because I was just so furious. I was just so angry. How could he shut this door? This is our plan, God. This is what we wanted. And it took me a year to go through, to process, to try to figure out and have these difficult conversations with God. And I wasn't reading my Bible. I still went to church. I was still serving in the church. But at the same time, I wasn't listening to anything. It was just coming in one ear, out the other. I was almost numb to it because I was so angry at God for not allowing me to do these things. Well, the beautiful thing about God is he never gives up on us. And he never stops loving, and he never stops carrying us. And even though we may stop loving him, we may get angry at him, we may say mean and unkind things to God, he stayed faithful to me, even though I wasn't faithful to him. And he pushed me through it. And through the help of him guiding my life, through the people he put in my life, my wife, Kate, who's amazing, a pastor friend of mine named Kyle Hogue, and other mentors that he put in my life, God guided me out of that darkness. And he brought me out. And it was a hard time, but he finally brought me out. And instead of looking for reasons, I began looking for results. Why was this happening? What was going on? Where, and I think the most important question, where was this leading? And I was sitting in service one day. And like I said, I hadn't been the most faithful Christian. Things were just bouncing off. But I was sitting in there and I got a text message. And I looked down and it was from a friend of mine who had been at a church I had been previously at. And he said that their current pastor, who was a good friend of mine, was leaving the church. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean? This is like his dream job. This is where he wanted to be. This is everything he ever wanted. We had talked about it when we were much younger. And I go, I can't believe he's leaving. What did he say? What had gone on? And my friend texted me and he said, well, what he told us is he had told this church no 4 times. And yet they still kept coming back. And he was praying one day to God, asking what to do and how to do it. And God said, maybe no is not the right answer. And that hit me. I got up. I ran to where my wife was. She was up serving in children's ministry up at Adventure Island. And she was on stage. And I waved her off stage. And she's like, I'm on stage. You can't take me off here. And I go, no, come on. So as soon as she could, she came outside and she goes, what is so important? And I said, I know what it is. I know what God wants. He finally answered my prayer. She goes, what do you mean? She goes, he's calling me to the ministry. He's calling me to be a pastor. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I need to get in seminary. I love you. I got to go by. And I took off. And she's like, wait, you can't do that. You can't leave. But I was already gone. And I was out of the way. And I look at that time of trial. I look back at that time of trial now. And though it was hard, I look at those 10 years where I was trying to do what I thought God wanted me to do. And it was a difficult time. But yet, God had a purpose. He had a plan. He had a reason. He led me here. I'm going to graduate with my master's in May. And a master's of theological studies. I'm serving here as your pastor, and I can look at the results of the storm that I came through. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't fun. It wasn't exciting. And I'm just thankful that he was faithful. I'm thankful that he guided me through, and he allowed me to stop looking for reasons and start looking for results. And I can see how he changed my life and made me into the man I am today. And I don't tell you that to make myself look better. I tell you that because I've been through it. I've experienced it. And I come into this time of pandemic, of craziness, of unprecedented times, and I'm not afraid. I'm not weary because I know that God will bring results and there will be a reason. And I've been through storms before. And I know that he is just and he is strong and he will bring us through this storm. No matter what the outcome, no matter what happens, he will bring us through this storm, this pain, this pandemic. And his will be done. So the last thing that I want to give you today is I want you to think back to a time when you went through a storm. Or maybe when your parents went through a storm. Maybe you haven't experienced a huge storm yet. But a time when you went through that storm and look back at what God did for you. Not at the reasons why, not at what happened, but what were the results? What did you learn? What did he do in your life that drew you closer to him or drew you or brought you through that problem? Maybe even look at an issue of maybe it pushed you away from God because you were looking in the wrong place for answers. So I want you to look back at that and see what God did in your life. If you haven't been through one of those storms, ask this question to your parents. Parents, ask this question to your kids if you're listening. Look at that storm. See how God brought you through and how he helped you. Well, I hope you've had a great Sunday. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Enjoy this beautiful weather that's out there. Hang out as a family, watch movies, have a good time, and I'll see you next time here at Valley Baptist Middle School.